Um, all right. Tell me about what business you're building.
Yes, so OffsideAI is essentially an AI automation company. We have a solution for logistics and a solution for real estate, and we're exploring automations for other verticals as well.
Nice. Where can people learn more about
So
what you build?
Offside.ai is our model, and you can actually sign up and start an account with us. We have a SaaS model, and we offer different tiers of automations for companies.
For companies, is it B2B?
B2B, yeah.
Okay, so who should be interested in signing up?
So right now, I would say logistics companies, tracking and logistics companies would be the ideal customers. We also have real estate agents and real estate brokers on our platform.
Nice. How did you validate your idea so far?
So it was actually a few years back when went to a collision conference in Toronto and met with some real estate folks, and I kind of just blurred out the concept behind the idea, and they said, "Oh, that's exactly what we need." And so we literally started building the next day. Yeah.
All right, tell me what a day in the life is like for you right now building this company.
So mostly I do about 50% coding and 50% business development work.
How do you split up that time? Do you work coding in the morning, biz dev in the morning?
Yeah, it's usually coding late nights and business development during the office times.
And when you're coding, what tools are you using for that?
So Cloud Code is my go-to for coding, but I'm actually a software engineer, so I actually have to verify the Cloud Code output.
Yeah.
And I actually do that because some people don't.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a disaster.
Yeah. What do you make of the dramatic changes we've been seeing in software development over the last year?
Yeah, so it's almost dizzying because of the speed at which things are moving, and I would say, as an entrepreneur, you have to try to keep up, even though it's just a fire hose of crazy products every day.
How much of your company was built before all of this agentic coding, and how much have you been able to build since?
Yes, so prior to OffsideAI, I had a app development firm in 2010 and ran that for 10 years before I decided to pivot to AI. And so I've got a whole 2 decades of coding experience.
Wow. So over those 2 decades, do you think this is the most dramatic change you've ever seen in software development?
Absolutely. Like the past 2 years have been the most dramatic. I would say the past 2 or 3 years, basically because of Anthropic, and Anthropic Claude is just a complete game changer.
Do you find this exciting, or do you find it upsetting that your talents have been devalued?
I would say that almost everyone in the tech ecosystem, we kind of have to move up the abstraction layer. So I was listening to a podcast where they said that back in the 70s, when there was no compilers, the software engineers were talking about how compilers were going to take their jobs. But this is the same thing essentially. So 50 years on, we're trying to fight against something that's going to move us one layer up the abstraction chain.
Tell me about a magic moment you had with AI recently when you were working on your product.
Yes, so back in November, I used to still handwrite my code and basically make sure that I reviewed every single line, just because I was so paranoid about security holes. And then I think sometime in end of November, I gave Claude a prompt which basically said, okay, build the backend. And it just flew through that whole thing. And I was like, okay, I'll check it later, but I'll just commit it. And it basically worked. I ran every single test case against the backend, and it worked. So that's where I realized, okay, I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I need to change the way I need to think about it. Yeah.
So for young people who have access to this power, do you think it's still important for them to learn the foundational technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's critical, actually. I think it might even be more important right now, because if you go straight to agentic or AI coding, you're going to basically create the biggest security holes on the planet. And I think it's going to lead to a disaster. So I would say you need the fundamentals no matter what. You need to understand every you might commit lines of code to your GitHub repo, but then there has to be a way to validate it. And that's where I think even entrepreneurs have to make sure that they do that. Like there has to be tests run on every single line of code.
I think it takes a lot of self-discipline to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it does. And I think it's super critical. Like there's no ways around it.
Yeah.
So AI does, it adds some productivity gains, but at the end of the day, you have to review your code. You have to run the tests. So there's no way around it.
How does it feel to be part of the last generation who got to write code manually for their career?
I would say the way I think about it is like we've moved up the abstraction chain and now we're essentially the orchestrators of code. So I think of myself as an orchestrator of code rather than just a software engineer and orchestrator of agents. So that's how I think about it.
So to wrap up the interview, where are you going? Where are you going next with the product you're building? What are your big goals for the project, and what are you looking to ship in 2026?
Yeah, so I think that in terms of software, there's a new frontier now, which is physical AI. So I think going into 2027, I would try to build some products in the physical AI space, which is essentially robotics. And I think it is the final frontier where software engineers can actually use their existing skills and build robots for specific use cases and verticals. And it's still exciting.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And this is beyond the scope of your current project.
Yeah. So I would say that I would still try to keep my market share in the verticals that we're in, but I would actually explore that frontier going forward, just because robotics is that final frontier now.
Is India a good sort of place to look at for that?
Sorry?
Do you think there's a lot of robotics going on in India and people you know there?
Yeah, there's actually, I mean, I would say there's a white paper called Semi-Cab, and they're looking into robotics and logistics and freight logistics. So that's an interesting frontier, and I think that whole thing will be automated end to end. But it's just that getting from where we're at now to there is where the exciting part is. So.
And tell everybody again where they can learn more about the company, the product.
Yeah, so OffsideAI, we're based in downtown Toronto, and you can go to offside.ai, sign up, start an account, free account, and then maybe we'll get you on a paid tier soon.
Awesome, Das. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, man. That was awesome.